This week on Givers, Doers, and Thinkers, join us as we speak with Andrew Laubacher, Executive Director of Humanality, an organization that's helping people overcome digital addiction and reclaim their humanity. Let's go. Welcome to Givers, Doers, and Thinkers, a podcast on philanthropy and civil society. I'm Jeremy Beer, and it's great to have you with us. Recording August 25th, 2025, and this is the season where we are focusing on nonprofit innovators who are helping to strengthen and renew civil society as we approach the American semi-quincentennial. So to that end, we're excited to have with us today Andrew Laubacher, who is Executive Director of Humanality, a movement dedicated to helping people overcome digital addiction and reclaim their humanity. Andrew holds degrees in theology and philosophy. He's a certified health and wellness coach. And for a decade, he was a touring musician. And something in there told him we needed a new approach, new strategies for digital detox and digital addiction. And that's where our conversation is going to start. Andrew, thanks for joining us.
Great to be here, Jeremy. Thanks for having me.
Well, it does feel like there's a backstory here. So what in your personal background led you to found Humanality?
Yeah, so I was fascinated, I say, with healing since my time at Franciscan University, very interested in those topics. And as a touring artist, there's a whole story.
What'd you play?
I play guitar and sing.
Okay.
I played everything. I've played bass, drums, guitar. I've played punk rock, reggae, rap, worship music in churches. There's a lot to unpack there, but I found myself traveling around the country, traveling around the world, playing, music, mostly in these faith-based environments, retreats, conferences, Paris Diocese, World Youth Day, you name it. We've been there. And I always loved healing. I always loved ideas. And I really found that music was kind of a vehicle for me to actually be able to share ideas. So like I'd be on stage, we're rocking out, and then I'd want to talk about determinism, mid set. And that doesn't really work, most of the time. Or reasons to believe in God, or these different health and wellness things I'm discovering. And so I'm a millennial. So I experienced half of my life kind of without tech, or at least to a very minimal degree. And then I've also
without these anyway.
Yeah. Then I've also had an iPhone and been on every social media platform there is. So where kind of Humanality intersects with all this is that in 2018, this is kind of the height of my touring, the height of my following in the social media realm. I did all those things that I was told to, right? You got to post every day, 6 times a day at these times, all these things you're doing on every platform. And that's how you build your following. That's how you make a career. That's how you make money, Now, also, mind you, this is in a faith realm. So I'm also sharing God. That combination is
sharing God.
That combination is different, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, by 2018, I was fully, I'd say, addicted, and we can define what these terms really mean. To my social media platforms, your Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter at the time, and was tired of all of the negative side effects that I would say we have way more established information and data today. But I just knew I needed to get rid of these things. It was leading me to comparison. It was leading me to wasted time. It was leading me to lust. My day was never good enough, even though I'm posting myself, going all over the world and playing at these venues and in airplanes every day. It still wasn't good enough, and so I deleted all my social media. I went to a flip phone in 2018, and, my record label management at the time was this is a horrible idea. This is not smart, and that year, I did all that. I mean, I went all over Canada, South America, Europe, coast to coast in the States. Like, I was busier than ever before. To me, God was just saying, hey, I'm a lot bigger than this. And I knew I was onto something then. And I really did see the mental health crisis unfold before my eyes amongst young people. And so there's a lot more that happened after that. But I experienced so much benefit from taking a step back from those technologies that, you know, my friendships improved, my purity improved, my productivity improved, my concentration improved. So many things got better. And it was a big turning point for me in a lot of ways.
You say you saw the mental health crisis among young people unfold before you. What do you mean by that? And how do you understand the relationship of digital technology and platforms, you know, social platform, media platforms, et cetera, to that crisis?
Yeah. So, I mean, I started touring, you know, getting paid to travel and play music probably in 2013. I was 23 at the time. And, you know, so you're going on retreats, you're going on conferences, and in these settings, you know, a lot of people come up to you and the young people want to talk about their struggles and what's going on. And I mean, I definitely saw a lot more young people, you know, it just felt very like I was very consistently getting, you know, young people that are, you know, suicidal and depressed and anxious. And it just kept on becoming more and more prevalent, I felt. So, you know, as I'm traveling, you know, again, this wasn't just like one state or even one city. I mean, this is, you know, a lot of places I was in, and I could just see that like there was more and more, I'd say, apathy. I definitely saw a lot of that growing around the country. So it was mostly at these conferences, you know, where you're playing music, you're up there, you're sharing the gospel in some capacity. People are coming up to you after and sharing what's happening. And I just started to notice, I mean, obviously a ton of people coming up and talking about their porn addiction. And, you know, all these things, I started to connect the dots because I was feeling the pain of these things too. So I'm kind of trying to figure out like, why am I kind of more anxious and why am I a little bit more depressed every time I scroll through Facebook? And so it was honestly part of my own kind of journey, but also serving people and just their bodies, right? I mean, we're in a pretty serious health epidemic from a chronic disease standpoint, you know, cancer, dementia, diabetes, obesity. I mean, these things are at an all-time high. And, you know, we're spending $4 trillion a year on our healthcare system, and this isn't providing a lot of solutions. So I noticed people struggling with their bodies a lot too, which, you know, as a Catholic, we believe in this, you know, hylomorphic view of the human person. We're embodied souls, we're ensouled bodies. So there was just major points of disconnection, I was saying, that I was starting to notice like technology had a really big part to do with all of that.
Let's delve deeply more into the problem. How much time is the average person spending on a screen these days?
Yes.
And what does that do to us? What does the data say? What's the science?
Yes.
say?
There's a lot of fun numbers on this. We'll start with, you know, the younger cohorts. Obviously Gen Z, if anyone's heard of, you know, The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt, which has kind of become a flagship book for really our movement. But, you know, he'll go through all the stats on the time, you know, for young people, it's in the, you know, 5 to 7 hour range a day, screen time. But your younger cohorts, you're looking at more like 8 hours and 39 minutes as a regular, you know, number you're going to start to see at upwards for low income communities, about 10 hours a day of screen time. So if you just add up, and we won't even get into immediately right now, like what that time entails and how that time is being used, but just say, you know, your average teenager at a, you know, 18 years old with a 90-year lifespan, and let's just give them those, you know, 90 years, they are on pace to spend about 27 years of their life staring at a screen on a phone. So when you start to do the math, and I just did the math for myself, I was around 5 to 6 hours a day, and a lot of it was work related, and then a lot of it wasn't. And I could get lost on my Delta app and my weather map and the news. And it didn't matter, you know, what it was. But we are spending, I mean, your average American household is about 257 hours a month of television or some type of screen-based media, which is about 10.2 days a month. that are just
Yeah.
being spent, on a screen. Now, to go over some of the impacts of that, I mean,
Yeah.
it's so multifaceted and multi-layered. We could get into some initial data that is coming out that is showing that there is a causal dose-dependent relationship between exposure to specific social media algorithms, I would call them, platforms, and poor mental health outcomes. So it's really like after 30 minutes of screen time on, say, one of your social media platforms, for young people specifically, it's about a 2x increased risk of anxiety and depressive symptoms.
Wow.
So there's enough, again, data
Wow.
pointing to as well that this isn't just, correlation. That's a lot of what people are bringing up. Well, this is just correlation, not causation.
Are there people like this? I was going to ask you that. Are there people who deny that there's an issue, like there's nothing to see here, basically?
Yeah, people will bring up some of these, and I think Haidt and Zach Bush and a lot of these guys, Gene Twangy, there's a slew of really intelligent people that destroy all those arguments pretty quickly. But I think they bring up points like this is just like the television, and we were all scared about the television. And, the television didn't have trillions of dollars of experts, psychologists, and, essentially hackers creating algorithms to addict you to their platforms.
Well, first of all, I would also push back on the idea that television did no harm. I mean,
right.
It doesn't exactly give me now possibly not the worst outcomes that were feared were experienced, but nevertheless, but yeah, your point is this is not just a passive sort of relationship anymore like we have with our TVs.
Correct.
But it's so customized, interactive, and perfectly calibrated to get you to do what they want you to do.
Totally. And there's data that shows, again, after this 3-hour mark, which your average teenagers on, social media platforms, 5.5 hours a day. So that's the difference. Social media is one thing. The phone is a general, probably 8 hours and 39 minutes a day. But after 3 hours, I mean, that's where that 2x increase in depressive and anxious symptoms emerges. And really a lot of the data that has shown like, hey, if you can get it down to 30 minutes a day, you'll begin to have, better mental health outcomes. But to me, that just shows like, okay, there's something off here. And I think we all know it. And even if we didn't have any of this data that we have now, that obviously humanity is unpacking in a way that is digestible for people and they can understand it. I would still say that most people I talk to, and again, I've never actually heard anyone tell me this, like, hey, I just scrolled social media for 5 hours and like my day is incredible. I feel great.
Yeah.
This is an amazing world we live in. Like I'm about to crush this day, like my morning routine is going to be amazing. Those just aren't things I hear.
Amazing. It is amazing. It is amazing. It is amazing that, because you're right. No one says that. No one feels that.
No.
And yet 5.5 hours a day is the average for a teenager. Well, for an adult, Gen Xer like me, like what's the average amount? Do you have any idea off the top of your head how much time a Gen X?
Yeah, it's still a lot. And I think the whole idea that this is like a Gen Z problem is like totally off. Like we are addressing this issue for all ages. I mean, there are many people escaping into the digital to, fix a lot of issues I'd say technology has created. And also, again, there's incredible benefit that can come from, even using some of these technologies today. So it's like we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater, but there is enough information that I would say even adults, I mean, just go to an airport. It's mostly adults staring at their phones. I was one of them, so I'm not, here to condemn anyone. And again, once we can dive into this a little bit more. This isn't all just happening by chance. Okay, so this actually isn't. We shouldn't feel like we have to blame anyone outside of these companies that I think need to be held responsible.
Outside of big tech.
Yeah, for what they've created, without any informed consent, without telling us any of the possible, negative outcomes that could happen from these technologies. We're helping unpack that now, but yeah, adults are in that same 5 to 7 hours of screen time a day.
We're going to get one more question before we start to get into what you guys, the Humanality, are doing, want to do to address all of this. But I just want to ask you, I have no idea what you'll say to this, but is addiction the right model for understanding our kind of problematic relationship with digital devices. Is it, or is it something else? Or addiction is the right model?
I think addiction is the right word and right model for a few reasons. Now, since 2013 in the DSM, the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, where mental health disorders are diagnosed, there are behavioral addictions that are in there, and that is pertaining to the internet addiction disorder. IAD is a real clinical disorder now. It was over 60 million people diagnosed with this, and that is far underdiagnosed, obviously. So the pathways that these technologies are using amongst the brain, after looking at fMRI studies from Dr. Nicholas Kardaras and other tech addiction experts, I mean, it's literally preying upon very similar neural pathways that are creating very similar brain, effects that, to very similar from drugs. So the idea is simply just because you're not ingesting something, it's not addictive. I think that's a lie. I think we can show pretty solidly through a good slew of studies that people with IAD and other, behavioral addiction disorders pertaining to technology are literally having the white matter in the brain diminished. And even this myelin sheath in the brain is being diminished, very similar to drugs, to methamphetamines. So this isn't like something, there's just some like old people getting scared, like, oh, you're going to lose your brains, kids. It's like, no, there's real impact from our behaviors, right? And these technologies, all the way down to, the colors, the sounds, the infinite scroll, the social approval. We can get into the mechanisms at play that are highly researched from psychologists in the 60s, B.F. Skinner, B.J. Fogg out of the Stanford Persuasive Design Lab, who essentially had what they call the Facebook class, which was initially this first group of, tech entrepreneurs that utilize these addicting tactics to exploit human vulnerabilities in their psychology for profit. So I think addiction is the right word. I think some people maybe feel more comfortable with compulsion. Either way, it's actually people are losing their capacity to function in their day-to-day duties due to the dings, pings, and rings and constant, distraction. Our attention span has fallen now below the goldfish at 9 seconds. The human attention span is now at 8, according to Microsoft. And these are not good metrics for us.
No, I don't need to know what the baseline is to know that an 8-second attention span is a little bit too low for human flourishing.
Yeah.
Well, I invite you to go further into how big tech has engineered all of this as we go forward, but we'll stop putting off sort of the humanality discussion itself. So what do? You talk about being on a mission to help people reclaim their time, health, and happiness by engaging in reality. So I guess the first question I would ask you is I like how you put that. It implies that being divorced from reality is the main problem with immersion in the digital world, that there really is a divorce from being somehow itself that happens that way.
Yeah. So Neil Postman said a new technology doesn't just change this or that. It changes everything. So let's first talk about how technology, we're unpacking with humanality, obviously a bigger vision of that. Like the car is a technology, your plane is a technology. We have a whole unpacking of the science behind our light environment. So our fluorescent lighting, has a huge impact on what we call, it's now, we're living 90% of the time indoors and 10% of the time outdoors. 100 years ago, that was completely opposite. So technology is not just the phone and the screen. It's a plethora of experiences we have today, conveniences that we love, but convenience is largely making us sick. Like McDonald's is incredibly convenient. If you eat that every day, you are going to get sick, like that, whatever, Supersize Me or whatever that documentary was.
Supersize Me.
Yeah. So when we talk about health and reality and I mean, we are very much correlating like the human person, which I believe is a rational animal, is in what we're calling a biological mismatch. So the way that we're living today, our biology was never designed to live in. And as technology continues to advance and become convenient, sadly, the stressors that actually we needed, like movement, like deep human connection, like light, like sunlight, And, even just hot and cold, like as we remove ourselves more and more from an environment our biology was designed for, this is a large reason why we're getting sick. I mean, in 2019, there was over 200,000 deaths of despair. This is pre-COVID-19. Every statistic you can look at on loneliness, on meeting, on happiness, our mental health, it's all plummeting pretty quickly. So again, for us, technology, the screen's a part of it. But Neil Postman also said that it's not necessarily what technology is doing to us, but what it's undoing to us. So part of what we're unpacking are things that are being undone, like young people and even adults, right? We are living behind these like online community experiences, interacting with humans through comment sections and endless threads and Reddit and your YouTube algorithms. And we weren't designed for those connections to give us the physiological benefit that actually in-person connection does, right? Yeah. So humanity is interested in how do we use technology intentionally, because it's not bad. And there are certain aspects of technology that are a real gift that I don't want to get rid of my Instapot. I really love my Instapot. I fly in airplanes every week. Like there's trade-offs to that. But I don't want to go back to a horse and buggy, so understanding the trade-offs of how we're interacting with technology and then using it intentionally. For most people, that means getting off of or removing a few things. Some of it could just be the accessibility of you to the world, right? Now work goes home with you. Now there's endless text message threads. Really a text message, if you break it down, is just another tab. It's another email, right? There are endless amounts of ways that our infinite accessibility to each other and our over communication is actually making us more stressed out and anxious. Nicholas Carr talks about this in his book, Super Bloom. He calls it digital overcrowding. So your brain and my brain were never designed to go and scroll through a YouTube algorithm or your TikTok or Instagram or whatever and see so many different minds saying so many different things. That's just one aspect of the reality that we are putting an original design for maybe 150 to 230 relationships max. That's Dr. Robin Dunbar's number that he has calculated. That is the actual amount of friendships we can facilitate. So, you're putting that number into like, oh my gosh, now I'm online and there's 1 million people responding to me or saying, giving me feedback, right? And we were never designed for that type of feedback. So we really break down all these trade-offs that are happening and then how to put technology back in its proper place. This is an Andy Crouch idea. Like I'm not Amish. I don't think we need to be Luddites and go, live in the forest, in the woods, even though I kind of love to do that, to be honest. I do think there's a way to use technology intentionally, but the cat's kind of, out of the bag, the genie's out of the bottle. There's some major things that I think we have to rewind or even just remove ourselves from completely to get some of these things that make us human back. And that's what humanity is kind of unpacking.
Hi, I'm Chris Kittemeyer, CEO of AmFell. I'm excited to share that this season of Givers, Doers, and Thinkers podcast is sponsored by AmFell. Whether your nonprofit needs help raising major gifts, building your donor pipeline, or crafting a winning fundraising message, AmFell has the expertise to help your organization thrive. We work with mission-driven organizations across the country to help them raise more money and advance their mission. Learn more at amphil.com. That's AMPHIL.com.
So talk about them. I know you have these friends and family villages that people can create, but talk about what's the program? What's the humanality? What's the step-by-step program, if there is one, for accomplishing these things? Because it's not. It strikes me that it's obviously one of those easier said than done sorts of thing.
No,
right? That has to almost take place within a social context, like by definition, that you can't just do this on your own. Totally. Almost. But anyway, speak to it.
And we're leveraging actually technology to get people in connection with each other while disseminating information through video. So it's like we're leveraging actually the good of of what some of these technologies can do outside of the algorithm to give people that in-person connection to start to reorientate themselves to a better way to live. So yeah, Humanity started with Hope and Justin Schneer actually funding a scholarship at Franciscan called Unplugged. Justin's an entrepreneur. He started a company called Tractor Beverages. It's a very successful beverage company. And him and his wife wanted to change, they noticed on campus, everyone's looking down, looking at their phones, ear pods in. It was very different even 10 years ago when I was at Franciscan. People talked to one another, And so they paid a scholarship money for 30 students to give up their smartphone and take on a dumb phone. And this got a bunch of press, and students' lives are starting to be transformed. And that's when they realized, whoa, this is something bigger than just Franciscan. And they knew a little bit of my story. I was in seminary prior to this. And, there's a lot more to unpack there, but we actually met during that time, and they knew my kind of story with this and my love for, health and wellness and healing. And anyway, they brought me on in 2023 as executive director, and we just started launching these clubs at universities. So we started launching these clubs and giving students light phones. So I don't know if this is something people can view from their home, but my phone is simply
a light phone. That's the actual name of the phone, right?
The lightphone.com is the name of the company. And it's simply just texting, calling. It's got directions. This is the Light Phone 3. So, it's pretty advanced now and has a camera, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
But it's really nothing. It's just texting, calling.
Email, and it doesn't have an internet browser.
No internet.
That's the main difference. And no apps.
No, nothing. It's literally texting and calling. You can download, I think, some podcasts and some music, but you got to do MP3s, and it's a whole thing. But anyway, it was a lot better than my flip phones kept breaking, and I was looking for something like this, and I just knew the smartphone, and some people have written on this, there's just too much power in it. It's actually just too potent, and we can get into that maybe later. But so we started launching these at universities, got about 30 to 60 students to join. These kids are willingly wanting to give up their smartphones. Wow. Or dumbify their smartphones.
You can dumbify a smartphone?
Yeah, so there's some simple ways.
Delete the app, I guess.
Yeah, you can literally turn your phone to grayscale, and we help everyone walk through this once you go through our program. So if you just go grayscale on your phone, it'll decrease your glances to your device by 43%. So your average American is just looking at the device 352 times a day, which is every 2 minutes and 45 seconds. We've seen numbers up to 2,000 times a day. Your average teenager's texting 167 texts a day minimum. That's just one platform, right? So think about how many interactions, notifications are happening throughout the day. It's insane. So anyway, students are willingly doing this. And as this is happening, I'm diving into all the literature. I'm reading like 50 books on all this. And how do we find a solution to this? Because there's all these people writing on it. And some people are doing little things here and there, but we need something a lot bigger than this. And I'm just looking ahead to the data and what this is going to create in the human person and the fallout that's happening now. So after reading all this, after running this at all these universities, we realized, hey, there's actually families are reaching out, universities are reaching out, high schools are reaching out, businesses are reaching out, churches are reaching out. This is a bigger problem. And actually what I'm creating, and now we're actually ready to launch, is actually for everyone. Anyone can launch now a Humanity Village, which will look like this. You can get people together, and obviously the minimum we're hoping is 2 people will meet together. This isn't like a self-paced course, right? So anyone can start a Humanity Village, and you will actually go through this 11-part series of the 11 humanality ways that I created that are the antidote to the poison of what some of these technologies are unleashing on our humanity. So, for example, first episode is Be Light. We literally go into all the science of how we are living in daylight, nighttime, and twilight daytime, and all the physiological effects that are unfolding because of our poor lighting environment, especially screen time on our eyes in the evening. Blue light is causing havoc on our circadian biology. So for example, that's like a challenge now that during that week of that episode you watch, your challenge is going to be a digital bedtime. So you put your phone to bed at 8 p.m. and you go to bed at 10 p.m., So we're unpacking the science and then giving you real practical actionable challenges that you can do. So these 11 ways you go through with the group, you go through an episode. We have a whole journal workbook that you work through. We help you create what we call a digital plan of life. So a huge issue I'm finding is that everyone knows that they're overwhelmed. Everyone knows they're stressed out. Everyone knows this is off and this is bad, and I don't really want to look at everyone's lives the rest of my life. This actually helps you create a framework of what your relationship is going to be like with your tech, and you write it out and you make a plan. And that's just a huge win right there. We walk you through every aspect of your device, whether you want to keep your smartphone and dumbify it, which again, you can go grayscale, you can take apps off, you can create just some different systems in place. We have every day you actually create some time of distance with the device, where it's even 10 minutes, where that thing is just not an appendage on your body for 10 minutes. You know, all of these different solutions that, you know, most people, this is too overwhelming to do all at once, right? So we simplify and synthesize all the information into real actionable challenges that you do together as a group, right? So you go through, you watch an episode, you take on a personal real life victory, which could be like a digital bedtime. And then you do a community adventure. So we did these at university level, and they were obviously mind blown by this. And this is hilarious to talk about because you experienced some of your life without this stuff, but they would go on things like phone-free hikes, where you just go on a hike without your phone, right? They would go to concerts without a device, you know, go outside for,
it's sad
you know,
to
walk.
me that these are regarded as huge wins. I have to be honest.
It's crazy. No, it's totally crazy. We have one that's called Phone a Friend. You literally, the challenge is to call someone on the phone, which is terrifying for most people today, which is crazy. So that's how the program works. And again, this is a lot of health and wellness implemented into that, with getting moving, being outside, being present, being mindful, the whole slew of information.
Yeah. It's all great. It sounds to me like the first steps in what's going to be a very broad-based and probably, frankly, lucrative industry that starts aimed at pushing back against the ill mental and physical and spiritual health effects of digital addiction. And yet at the same time, it also strikes me as that it can never work more than at the individual level if it just stays there, right? Like I think about what were the smoking statistics in 1950? You know, one of the great things my wife and I like to do is go back and listen to old classic radio shows like Jack Benny, and it's all what's the
I don't know these names, but
you because you're too young. But it doesn't matter. But they were sponsored by cigarette companies or tobacco companies, and the cigarettes. It's just there's skits about the cigarettes. There's jingles about cigarettes. It's all cigarettes. And God, wait, what percentage of people were smoking in 1950 cigarettes versus now? I mean, it's a massive difference. Am I wrong in thinking? I don't know what you think when you go beyond humanality right now in your mind. I think it's going to take something like legal pushback, public health campaigns, public policy to hold companies accountable. To create disincentives, put it that way. Really, really, really strong disincentives to keeping us on screen and addicted to things all the time.
Yeah, there's a ton happening there. So Gaia Bernstein in her book Unwired kind of broke down the 3 reasons why everything is so difficult to change in this capacity, because of the incentive structure, because the trillions of dollars these companies are making through, what's called now the attention economy. She correlates exactly they are doing the same playbook that big tobacco did. And it's three things simply. And I'd say we're in one of them pretty particularly, but all the tech companies share these same 3 things about, their answers to these, accusations, which there's an incredible amount of people writing on this subject, but it's personal responsibility, science wars, and the First Amendment. So they throw on the personal responsibility thing like, well, this is up to you to decide how you use these technologies, right? When they're like scientifically exploiting your biology to keep you engaged on your Netflix series, on your next scroll, and then the science wars is what's happening now. So there's enough data out on, a whole slew of books as we have on our website that people could read.
Right.
That is convincing
I recommend
enough.
it. You guys, you recommend great books on your website, and I'd highly recommend people check it
Yeah.
out.
Like there's enough data out there where the science wars are happening now, right? You'll find that, Zuckerberg has been in Congress testifying to thousands of parents that have lost their children due to cyberbullying, self-harm, suicidality, extortion events. And, they're not taking responsibility, obviously, that their products are harming, people, and they know it, right? Like the Facebook files that came out from Frances Haugens in 2011 actually showed internal documentation that Meta knows that their algorithms are harming and increasing self-harm amongst young girls, suicidality and body image issues. And they said, hey, should we change this? And they're like, no, it's going to decrease engagement, So when I have a hard time just even most people will say like, well, I find really good things on it. Like I love watching, there's a million reasons how Facebook Marketplace, how they're keeping you on these platforms. When I don't want to be giving my time or attention or money to industries that don't have the human person's flourishing in mind. And one of Facebook's, major sayings early on was to move fast and break things. Yeah. And sadly, one of the things I think they've broken is the human person.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have any, I know it's really early on, but do you have any success stories, or do you have any data showing can people be in a healthy relationship with the sort of digital tech we've been talking about?
Totally. And so right now this is our first launch in the general public. So we have 1,000 people on our waiting list, from organizations to high schools to universities to families, friends. I mean, we are on the precipice of some real growth. And this is our first launch of this now into the general population from all over the world. We haven't launched anything. We have zero marketing. It's simply been, time and getting on some of these, podcasts, and also speaking around the country. The testimonies from students, we have on our website, they're incredible. I mean, students that are learning that they want to learn an instrument, and now are playing, concerts at their school. We've had girls that have been healing from body image issues that got off of some of these platforms, and their self-esteem has improved. Their grades have improved. Young men sharing, they're healing from porn addiction. So we have all the anecdotal evidence. I'm actually building a clinical framework built into the program so we can see before and after. Like, if you live out and start to live in accordance with more of your humanity through these 11 ways, which again talks about movement, sleep, light, connection, mindfulness, really being present, leisure. Like, we don't even know what leisure is anymore. And what's hilarious is that now today, Anna Lemke talks about this in Dopamine Nation, but we have, now about 5.5 hours of leisure time a day. When 100 years ago, we worked about 6.5 days a week, 10 to 12-hour days, about 50 weeks out of the year. All the time-saving technologies like your car and your washing machine and your dryer, and the phone, all these time-saving machines and technologies that we've been giving now, we are literally putting that exact amount of time back into mindless entertainment. So like when you get that back and you start to invest more in your relationships, in your businesses, in your health, like I mean, I can tell you anecdotally, students' lives are being transformed, but I'm hoping to have more of a clinical, framework around that where we can share with like, hey, businesses even are reaching out. Like Gen Z is getting destroyed in the workplace right now. They can't last 6 months. And I think it's largely due to, a lack of what Jonathan Haidt will call experience deprivation. They have no idea how to handle conflict resolution, how to emotionally regulate, how to talk to someone. I mean, it's a full I realize what we're doing is insane,
Yeah.
And we're going up against $1 trillion companies, and that's what I don't really feel any fear with any of this. I know that the deeper longing of the human person is for this. Yeah. And you're going to have a slew of people that go into, Neuralink and AI and virtual reality, and they sell theirs, they live with their own chat AI bot and have their relationships there. I am not here to force anyone, to not do that. We want to essentially invite people into, I'd say, a flourishing life,
No, it does strike me that the parents who succeed in raising their children in ways they're not addicted to everything we've been talking about.
Yeah.
And then they become human, and then they understand who they are and can speak to people like a normal human being and so forth. They're going to eat the lunch of everybody else.
100%.
That's at least the hope I would have, you know.
Oh, yeah.
That will provide one kind of disincentive to becoming a digital zombie.
Yeah, and
in your power always.
Totally. But all the tech founders sent their children or themselves went to what's called Waldorf schools. So they went to low tech schools. Like Steve Jobs never gave his children the iPad to use. I mean, they didn't get high on their own supply, you know. So I'm seeing kids, you know, in restaurants with iPads, and I get so many parents are struggling. It's like it's the digital pacifier. I get it. I don't have a family or kids yet, but I've lived with families of 9 and 7, and large families that have found other ways to allow their children to let their creativity flow. And the data is clear that giving children and even teenagers these type of devices with zero guardrails, you are stunting their growth on many different levels, which is hard to hear because obviously so many parents out there didn't know this was going to happen.
No, and right. And it's been socially valorized and everything, and which is why we don't want to be. It's a good lesson for us in terms of when we look back in history, not to judge people for doing things that were socially legitimate. But it is kind of like, hey, here's another, handing another pack of cigarettes to your
100%. Yeah, we haven't even gone over the radiation coming off of these devices. So in 2011, the WHO came out and said that the radiation from your cell phone is a class 2B carcinogen along with lead gasoline. So that thing being attached to your head, being attached to your side, I mean, there's serious biological impact from that, so we unpack the EMF situation that's unfolding in our program. So you're getting a really comprehensive view of the different ways that this is impacting you and then what you can do about it. Because actually there's a lot you can do about it. There's a lot people can do to put these things back in their proper place. And yes, it's going to be incredibly painful. Yes, it's going to be difficult. But when you delay some of these gratification, seeking dopamine hits, the long-term, benefit is amazing. It's been amazing in my life, and I know it's going to change millions of people's lives too.
Reclaim your humanity.
Yep.
Last question for you here, Andrew. How can what ways are you guys thinking about doing this, or maybe you can answer this more generally if you want? But how can institutions be leveraged in this fight? I'm thinking of schools, churches. Like this is not something that's even discussed. You and I would both know it's Catholics, I think, in the parish,
Totally.
or at the diocesan level, as far as I know. I don't see diocesan school systems leading the way here to kind of point the way toward a more healthy relationships and technology. Is there a way to leverage these kinds of institutions to help us out?
Yeah, I mean, I think actually both sides of the aisle. I mean, you got Newsom in California and you got DeSantis in Florida. They're banning, phones at school-wide levels in the public realm. So there's something to be said there. This is not a left or right issue. This is a human flourishing issue. And I think the church should be leading the way. And sadly, that hasn't been the case. And so what's great about humanality is that we're actually just a movement, and we are going to go left, right, atheist, Catholic. I don't care who you are. If you're a human being and one of the 6.5 billion people that have a smartphone on the planet, we want to help you. We want to help you and your life and your family. I think if these schools can start launching these villages and start going through this curriculum and taking on the challenges. And so to me, the experience is crucial, right? Like you have to not just learn that something's, happening to you, but you have to start to experience it. And there's an insane amount of data that, shows that these people that go on these detoxes for 5 days, in the woods and the benefits you get from nature, like Japan has had studies on, the benefits of nature for years. So when you get together with the group and you start to take on some of these, challenges, go through the workbook, we have top experts on our curriculum from Dr. Nicholas Kardaras, who has one of the 2 tech addiction clinics in the country, while China, mind you, has over 400 tech addiction clinics. we're a little behind on this front. Dr. Leland Stillman, Claire Morell on our board. She just wrote the book, The Tech Exit.
Yeah.
So we have some big hitters on here. And then, I'm really unpacking and synthesizing this. So I think once people understand what's happening, because no one really knows, I think that's when you start to implement. And my hope is that schools are just going to start launching these small groups that can meet at any pace you want. That's the cool thing about this. You can do this once a week, once a month, every 2 weeks. And, institutions are reaching out and, we're just at the beginning of this launch. So hopefully we can get some traction here and build our, team out to meet the demand. But it's, real estate companies wanting to buy it for their workers, track teams. I think a lot of different institutions are going to be interested because it's actually going to save them a lot of the fallout that's going to continue to happen if we don't make a change.
Andrew, how can people learn more about Humanality and engage you guys?
So we just used the Good of It website. So you can go to humanality.org. You can sign up for the waiting list. We're going to be launching very soon this month for our village experience. And there's some, information there on how you can get your church signed up, your organization, your business, your family, and start to go through this detox together and begin to share the transformation that unfolds. But humanality.org is the best place to find us. We're not on any social media platforms, and I'm doing that intentionally.
God bless you. If this whole thing succeeds and you are on a social media platform, that's fantastic. I love it.
Yeah. It's going to be hard. It's going to be longer, but I'm interested in longevity and not really going viral. So
awesome. Well, good luck to you.
Thanks
for what you're doing.
Appreciate it.
Talk soon. Hey, thanks for joining us for today's podcast. If you enjoyed it, we invite you to subscribe or rate or review us on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to our podcast. Thanks a lot.